It's easy when it's sunny and 70. It's easy when our kids are behaving. We got 7 hours of sleep. Like, it's easy when it's easy. But of course, it's not always easy. And this is the season to practice that. This is the season to practice your adaptability, your flexibility, and allow yourself to be less than perfect, because that is the only way forward, right? That is the only way to get through the season, being less than perfect. But the key thing is you're sticking with it. You're not throwing in the towel.
Hello, Adam, and happy season.
Happy,
That's all I've got. Happy season.
Happy season to you too.
I mean, it's a season, man. Season. And this word has been coming up a lot with some of my clients. I think, as human beings, I think we really think like, oh, we're just going to lock in and we're going to do the same thing day in and day out and nothing better change around us and I'll be okay. And it's just not true. Right?
Yeah. No, it's
yeah.
There's a lot going on in the next 6 weeks or so, to say the least.
It's like going back to school. Like for us adults, especially, like I feel like it's the time of year now where it's like everything we come up against all year long is all crammed into this last part of the year.
Yes, this is the ultimate test, if you will.
It is, but it's like the ultimate time to learn this stuff. I'm trying to reframe it like that. I'm really encouraging the people I'm working with, the people I'm talking to really see this as the biggest opportunity of the year to gain some massive skills in flexibility, adaptability, evolution, embracing discomfort, all the things. It's all rolled into one, and getting those skills in a short amount of time is such a gift, really. I mean, we can call it that.
I love it. I agree. I have clients too, and often the conversation of I'm traveling, or should I wait until the new year to start, take a break? And the thing I always say is, like, eventually you're going to have to get through the holidays, right? Eventually you're going to have to get through the holidays, so we might as well do it now, because the sooner you do it, the sooner you have the tools and the mindsets and the skills to get through it next year.
That's right. Yeah. I think choosing to put your foot down and say, okay, I'm going to dig in here and see what I can learn this season. Next season's already guaranteed to be different.
Right.
It's a guarantee. And I think it really helps all the one-offs you have the rest of the year, all the random birthdays or the little trips or the random, time off from work or whatever, meals out. You're going to practice it all season long. So get ready for awesomeness afterwards.
Yes. It kind of reminds me of my weighted bat approach to life. And if you watch baseball, before batters go up to bat, they stand in the little batting area. I'm not a big baseball guy, but I do know this. And they put weights around their bat and they practice swinging with a weight around their bat, and it feels really heavy, right? And then when they're up to bat, it's actually their turn. They take the weights off and the bat feels much lighter. And I feel like this is our weighted bat approach, where we're going to really, the next 6 weeks are going to be tough. And then afterward, it's like, wow, this feels a lot easier. You're going to have the ability or more capacity perhaps to roll up your sleeves and really dig in.
Yeah.
Just to kind of continue with that side tangent of weighted bat approach, another example is that, when I first moved to New York City, and I had to commute to work when I first started working, my walk to work every day was 30 minutes. So the first few days I actually left early and made my walk like twice as long. So it was an hour walk just for the first few days. So for the rest of my career of walking there, it felt so much easier, right? Or it's like you wake up a little earlier than you want to. And then let's say you want to wake up at 6, you wake up at 5:30 for a few days or a week. And then you start waking up at 6, it feels like you're sleeping in. So essentially you're making it harder up front. And then your anchor point is it just feels a lot easier. So
I love that. No, I think it's a great analogy, first of all, for this season to be the weight on the bat, and then we're going to take that weight off come, the end of the season. But also, I think we can apply that during this season because I think what a lot of people struggle with is, right, like maybe they've gotten into a good rhythm, a good routine with a lot of their health practices. And then we come in and we layer in more weight on the bat, right? We have holiday parties, we have trips to see family members and friends. Maybe this is a busier time of year at work, definitely busier if you have kids, they've got all sorts of stuff going on, right? So the intensity increases. And I think people tend to like just set the bat down.
Yep, exactly.
Right? But but maybe there's a way to like actually like use the weighted bat approach to help you feel a little less overwhelmed during your weeks. It might look like, I tend to have the habit of like cooking dinner several nights a week. I have my schedule set up so that it supports it. But sometimes when the weighted bat of life gets too heavy, I definitely have to like think ahead and like prep meals in advance. Some nights I'll cook 3 or 4 dinners at once, which, oh my gosh, like
Right.
you feel like you've been hit by a train when you're done with something like that. And
You
that's
feel like you've been hit
really
with a
picking
bat.
up like yes, exactly. It's like the heaviest bat I can find in the dugout, right? It's
Yep.
like, okay, this week is hell already, and let me pick up this gargantuan thing and try to swing it. But oh my gosh, it makes my life so much easier,
Right.
right? Like, so I wonder if we can like choose the heavier. I do this in class too. Like when I teach my group fitness classes, I'm like, no, 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 no. Choose the heavier weights to start, right? You can
Yes.
always put them down
Yes.
and swap out to your lighter weights, right? Or start your push-ups on your toes. Even if you just do one, start it on your toes because if you don't realize what you're capable of. And so I would love to like talk through some ways we can ask our clients to pick up the heaviest weighted bat they can find
Yes.
and just really like call themselves up to that challenge.
I love it. Let's do it.
So one of them is, I mean, if you're not in the habit of batch cooking or meal prepping all at one time, and it is a harrowing experience if you've not done it or you don't do it too often. Like I mean, imagine a Thanksgiving day on a random Saturday. That's,
Right.
that's kind of what it feels like. But man, it's like the biggest gift. So that would be like one way I could think about kind of swinging an intentionally obnoxiously heavy bat
I like it.
to have some easier swings. Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm certainly a recovering perfectionist, so I'm sometimes fighting this desire or this wanting of just it's like sometimes it feels like either do it or do nothing. And that
Mm,
temptation of doing nothing is sometimes very strong. So for me, like the weighted bat, or maybe not the weighted bat, but just the practice for me is always reminding myself that I have to do and I want to do something, right? Instead of turning off the dial, it's turning it down. Instead of committing to doing nothing, it's committing to doing something. So
hmm.
this season is absolutely and always will be about embracing that and embracing that perfection is the enemy. Good enough is good enough. Something is always better than nothing. All or nothing always leads to nothing. So it's about being realistic with my calendar for the day, looking ahead, seeing what I have, and making time. If I have only 20 minutes to exercise, then I will exercise for 20 minutes, right? Whereas the old me might have said, I'll wait until I have the next hour available or whatever it might be, right?
Okay.
Or,
I like it.
yeah, or it could be I'm going out, last week I went out to dinner with friends from college. And, we hadn't seen each other in a while. It was nice. And it was a very easy opportunity to say, all right, I'm just going to throw in the towel and eat whatever I want. And I certainly was flexible with myself, but I didn't have to eat I still had constraints for myself and boundaries and it felt good. Right. So I didn't feel like I was sacrificing anything whatsoever, but it was nice to go in with a plan and follow through with it.
All right, so the weighted bat for perfectionists is what I'm hearing, right? And that is embracing always something, never nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always something, always something. I have a client I'm working on this very thing with. And what's amazing is she's so consistent in so many ways. But it's interesting when we layer in a new challenge or she wants to work on a specific goal, her tendency is to just go all in, right?
Yeah.
And she's very much like, if it can't be an hour and a half of structured whatever every single day, like I've designed it, she defaults to nothing.
Right.
And we are in the season of practicing like the smallest something, and her consistency is through the roof,
Right.
you know? And it's really changing a lot of the ways she's approaching everything else. So I think that's a great weighted bat
That's fantastic.
approach,
Yeah. I mean, listen,
especially.
yeah. I mean, I'll never forget. I had this client, she trained for marathons, and she would scorn anything unless she was training for a marathon. She would scorn, a 2 or 3 mile run. And it was like, it was just all or nothing. Right. And we worked to change that. And it was very big for her because she was in this kind of pattern of just being on or very off.
Yeah. Something that just crossed my mind too. Another way I think we could set ourselves up with a weighted bat approach through the season. And actually, it's like really picking it up here in the beginning. What if we like wrote down what we want to look back on and see that we've accomplished, let's say January 1st or January 2nd, right? Like almost like you write a letter to yourself, like your January 1st self or your January 2nd self, and it's like, hey, look at all the things I did, right? And then you swing that weighted bat today by writing it, and then every day you pick up that bat and you read it, and come January 1st, it's like, look what I did. I don't know. I mean, it could be an interesting challenge, right? Like put out there, like, who do you want to be by that date? And then actually look at it. Because I think something that happens is we forget ourselves.
Yep.
Right. And
especially,
the only way to remind,
just especially in the busyness of everyday life and the holidays and, get-togethers and all sorts of things that come about in the next 6 weeks or so.
Yeah. And I really think like writing it down and revisiting it. I mean, we talked about Rocky Notes a few weeks ago. It makes all the difference, right? If you're not in the habit of thinking in terms of like, all right, what do I want right now? But also what do I want, 10 days from now, 10 weeks from now, 10 months from now. If you're not in the habit of that, the best way to create that habit is to intentionally consider that on a daily basis. And for my money, writing it down and having a practice of reviewing it every day is the way to do that. Do you have a better way to train that skill?
I mean, we talked about this recently about just writing down and your intentions and who you want to be. And so you can remind yourself. I mean, I think that's very powerful. Because again, we have this long-term rational mind and we have this short-term irrational mind, and we have this person we want to be and we aspire to be. But in the moment, that could easily go out the window. And having that reminder of who we want to be, the type of things we want to do, I think is really powerful. So I'm not sure there is a better way than that. And reviewing that on a daily basis, I mean, that's very powerful.
Yeah. Do you know many people who do that though?
I mean, I don't. I think it's one of those things where people nod their head and say, yeah, that sounds good. But I don't know if many people actually do it. The people I do know who do it swear by it.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I make that recommendation a lot, and I would say not too many do it, but the people who do absolutely change. And I would say, as a coach, as an accountability coach, one of the things I strive to do on a regular basis, if not daily, is to remind my clients I'm working with of what they said they wanted, right? And what we did today, what we did yesterday, how's tomorrow you going to feel about that?
Yep.
And I tell you, it works every time. And it's like, right, like we want to equip people with that ability and that skill. And I don't know that there's any other way to do that other than write the dang thing on paper and review it every day.
Yep.
And if you need help remembering to do that, we're here.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. And don't just nod your head, actually do it. And I think it could be immensely powerful for this season.
Totally. Do you want to talk about a few ideas or messages we wish everyone would embrace as well, just to kind of wrap it up?
Sure. Yeah. What do you have?
So, I mean, number one, I think, is really practicing. I would say this is the season of practice. And remember, practice can be messy. Any good practice, there is struggle, right? As I remind my 2 boys as they're practicing their sports, like if you're just practicing things that feel good and are easy to you, that's not really practice. You're just doing something that you're good at. Good practice feels uncomfortable. There's struggle in it because you're doing something new. So let this be the season of practice. Also, let this be the season of giving yourself grace, right? Like it's so easy to beat yourself up. It's so easy to kind of, tell yourself the story of here I go again. But what if you say it's not a big deal? You move on, you cross it out and move forward, right? Like as I remember my oldest son's kindergarten teacher, her motto was cross it out and move on. And we get so hung up on our quote unquote mistakes or missteps. It's like focus on the facts. The fact is maybe you had another drink, or maybe you ate too much dessert, or maybe you ate more than you wanted to. That's the fact. It is what it is. All the stories, like the fiction we tell ourselves, here I go again. I can't do this. Like that's all fiction. Leave that out at the door. Focus on the facts and move on. So that was a long answer, or my first one was a long one, but it was, let this be the season of practice. Let this be the season of giving yourself grace. I think that will serve you extremely well over the next 6 weeks. How about you?
Yeah, to kind of piggyback on the season of grace, let this be the season of getting the hell out of the way, right? Like when we don't give ourselves grace, we're choosing to remain stuck.
Yeah.
Right? Like do you want to just keep reliving the year you just had, the time you just had? Like is that really what you want? If not, let go of the story, right? Like get the hell out of the way. Um my message, this is the season of seasonality, right? Like I think it's also challenging. There are random things happening just that are out of our control, like the days getting shorter and the light changing and the time changing and work demands changing. Um, and I think kind of circling back to my very first comment, where as humans, there's something in us that is convinced nothing changes. And then we rail against it. I've got clients texting me, oh, I'm waking up in the middle of the night. It's so frustrating. I'm fighting myself. Okay, well, how about we just embrace it? Oh, I had that thought. It's a good idea. I could just get up and embrace the quiet time, which listen, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning sounds like a nutty time to get up and read. It's amazing. In fact, when I stop waking up at 3 in the morning to read, I get a little sad, but it's like, it's the season of going with the flow,
Yeah.
embrace what is and get creative. It's a creative season. Like, what are you going to do if you have a 70-hour work week and kids at home and what are you going to do to fit in fitness? I have clients who are taking yoga mats to work and sneaking off into a room that never gets used for 10 minutes of yoga.
Right.
In a dress suit, no less. Get creative. Oh my gosh, please, like, reinvigorate the child within, because it is a season for creativity.
I love that.
That's what I've got.
I love that. I mean, and it kind of goes in hand with my next thing, which is practice turning down the dial, not turning it off. It's again, I mean, I mentioned this before, but it's so tempting to turn off the dial. Turn it down, right? If you have a lot of meals out, you might not be able to control what you eat, but you can always control how much you eat. You can always control how you eat. And often you can't even control what you eat. But focus on what you can control. Turn down the dial, not turn it off. Allow yourself grace. And I think our most successful clients have become comfortable sticking with it with less than ideal conditions.
Mm-hmm.
That is where the magic happens. Like it's easy when it's sunny and 70. It's easy when our kids are behaving. We got 7 hours of sleep. Like it's easy when it's easy, but of course it's not always easy. And this is the season to practice that. This is the season to practice your adaptability, your flexibility, and allow yourself to be less than perfect, because that is the only way forward, right? That is the only way to get through the season, being less than perfect. But the key thing is you're sticking with it. You're not throwing in the towel.
Absolutely. I don't know if I have any others. I think I need to go find a weighted bath though.
There you go. Let's do it. But yes, the weighted bat approach, I think, is very powerful. And this is, to your point, like I like to think of, it's like when you clean up the kitchen at the end of the night, you come downstairs, your kitchen is nice and clean, like you gave your future self a gift. Think about how you want to feel on January 1 or January 2, like in early January. Think about how you want to feel. And remember, if you do what you've always done, if you allow the pattern or the temptation to say, I'll kick this, I'll punt this until the new year, you're going to get the same outcome, right? So try to do the different thing this season, right? These next 6 weeks or so. Try to say, all right, you know what? I know this is not ideal. I know I'm traveling. I know I'm doing this, but I'm going to stick with it. Like, to me, that is the only way to break patterns, is to do something different and use us, right? Instead of recoiling and hiding, use us. Talk with your coach about it. Lean on us. We can help you. That's what we're here for.
Yes. And if anybody decides they're going to write down the thoughts and feelings they want to have come January 1st, January 2nd, and wants to send it to us, send it. I'd love to read it. Pick up the weighted bat. Let's go, baby.
I love it.
All right, guys. That's it for this week. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, take good care.